All right, guys. Good evening, everyone. We are here again on our weekly health and safety workshop, where we discuss health and safety topics, enlighten ourselves, and improve our knowledge also. So I'm happy to have you here with us today. Mr. Stephen is there, Mr. Dash, Mr. Bina. Bina, you are here, right? C2 is there also. So I'm happy to have you with us. So already 6:06, so we will start with the presentation immediately so that we'll be able to finish before 7. All right, like we always have it, is an interactive workshop, which means everyone is permitted to contribute. If you have any question, you just raise up your hand and ask the question. Then after the speakers have presented their slides, then everyone can contribute as usual. So welcome, Mr. David. All right, I'll go ahead and share my slide, my screen, so that we'll commence. Stephen, can you see my screen? Can you come?
Sure. Yes, I can.
All right. Today's topic is drop zone management. If you attended last week's workshop, you will actually know where we picked this topic from. We discussed the work at height procedure last week. So in the course of work at height, we mentioned as one of the control measures to ensure that falling objects do not cause injury to people. One of the control measures is to establish a drop zone. Okay, so it was from there we decided to look deeper into drop zone. We decided to discuss the best practice in establishing drop zone while people are working at height or while there is a risk of falling objects. So that is where we got the inspiration to discuss drop zone today. So like we always do, everybody will contribute after the slide presentation. Okay. When do we consider drop zone to establish a drop zone? When there is work at height and when there is also risk of material falling from height to below. So in such instances, drop zone establishment is very important. It's just part of the control measure. It's an additional control measure to ensure that objects or materials falling from height do not cause injury. So this is not just the only control measure that will be in place. Of course, there could be elimination, that is ensuring that you don't go to the height if it is possible to do the job from below. Also, like use of nets to catch the material from falling, use of other control measures like tow bolts to prevent the material from falling. All these control measures could be used. Now, additionally is a drop zone. Drop zone simply means establishing drop zone will ensure that people are kept away from within the premises where materials or objects could fall below. Okay. Now let's look at the definition of a drop zone. So a drop zone is described as a defined area below work that is being performed above ground, where there is potential for suspended load, tools, materials, waste, or all other objects that could fall and create a risk to workers or members of the public. Okay, so those areas that you map out, that there is possibility that any material that falls from height would fall in this particular area. So that area is defined as a drop zone. All right, now, of course, we know the risk that is associated with falling objects. If objects are falling from height, then it has a greater force. As it's coming from height, as it's coming from the height, there is an increased force to which it reaches the ground. So, for instance, let's take, for example, that 1 kilogram of an insulator, if it falls from a height of about 9 meters, it gathers 2,700 kilograms of force. Okay, just 9 meters of fall of a kilogram object, before it reaches the ground, it has up to 2,700 kilograms of force. This tells you that as the object is coming down, it's increasing in force, it's gathering more force. So there is possibility of causing more serious harm as it gets to the ground. So we should not overlook the weight of an object. No matter how small the weight is, it has greater possibility of causing injury as it gets to the ground. Okay. So this simply means we should put a proper control measure to ensure that it doesn't hit someone. Okay, so what are the things that we could consider while establishing a drop zone? When establishing a drop zone, we should consider if the job could be done from the ground without going to the height. The next thing we should consider is the size and weight of the objects that could fall from below. Remember, if the weight of the object is very high, then as it's coming down, it's gathering an extra force, which will make it a very serious high risk potential. Okay, then the next thing to consider is the height that the job is being carried out, or the height from which this object could fall from. Okay, then the next thing to consider is the proximity of people that moves around that area, the closeness or the volume, how many people that are near that area. If it's in a workplace, how many workers that cross that location. If it's near if it's near a general public area, how many pedestrians could cross that area at every point in time? If it's near the high traffic area, how many vehicles could be crossing in that area? So these are conditions that we should consider before establishing a drop zone. Okay, then the next thing to consider is the weather condition. If there is very high wind, then you know that the object that is falling will not be falling directly under where the work is being done. It could deflect. The wind, the high wind could cause the object to deflect either to the left or to the right or outside the perimeters of where the job is being done. Okay, then the other thing that you should consider is the lift plan. If the lift plan actually took into consideration the environmental factors. Okay, the other thing that also needs to be considered is if there are facilities under where this job is being done. Because if, for example, if an object is falling from height and it hits another facility, then it becomes an increased force, and it could help it to deflect away from where you have established your drop zone. So if you consider all these factors, then it will help you to establish a drop zone at a distance where if the object falls, it will still be inside your drop zone. Okay. Now, let's look at the rules. These are the rules that could be considered while establishing a drop zone. The first one is like the thumb rule. The thumb rule, which says that if the height is less than 20 meters, the drop zone radius should be approximately 1/3 or 33% of the working height. If the job is being done at a height that is less than 20 meters, then while establishing the drop zone, it should be about 1/3 of that height. That is 33% of that height. Okay. Now, but if the job is being done above 20 meters, then the radius of your drop zone should be about 1/4, 25% of the height. If you are working, if the job is being done about over 20 meters height, then we should be looking at 1/4 of the total height to establish the drop zone below. Okay. Though these rules, there could be other factors that would make it maybe impossible for the rules to be established. Maybe there are perimeters, or maybe there are buildings, or maybe there are structures around the area that could make it impossible for you to maintain this standard radius of drop zone. But it's a very good practice to ensure that you follow this radius. Okay, now let's look at this table. This table will help us to establish the minimum radius that each height of the work at height and the drop zone radius that should be established. If the job is being done in less than 12 meters height, then the drop zone radius should be about 4 meters. If the job is, the work at height is done on about 14 meters height, then the drop zone radius should be about 5 meters. If the job is being done on about 16 meters height, then the drop zone radius should be about 5.5 meters. Okay, if the job is on 18 meters height, the radius of the drop zone should be 6 meters. Okay, now if the job is, the work at height is at 25 meters height, then the drop zone should be about 6 meters in radius. If the job is, the work at height is at 30 meters height, then we should consider 7.5 meter radius of the drop zone. 40 meters height of work at height should be about 10 meters drop zone radius. 50 meters work at height should be about 12.5 meters radius of drop zone. And 75 meters height should be about 19 meters drop zone radius. Okay. Now, there is no legal requirement that is supporting this drop zone establishment so far. But we have, as a reference, we have a Safeoclock Australia, falling object fact sheet. Also, we have from guidance note for drop zone management within the FACE. Okay, the reference is here. You can read it up later if you want to get more information. All right, so far there is no, I couldn't get any legal requirement that is backing this, these heights and the radius, but it's a best practice established by industries that deal on work at height activities. Okay, so in your workplace, the major aim is to prevent incident, to prevent drop object falling on people, and to prevent anything that could cause incident because of objects falling from height. So whatever you can do to ensure that objects do not fall on people and people do not get injured could be regarded as best practice. Okay, so this is what we have found so far, and there are more to it, and I'm looking up to for us to talk about it, ask questions, argue it if possible, and arrive at a possible conclusion. Okay, the question, I have a question from Latif. What is the ratio for calculating this measurement? Okay, I gave, let me show you. I gave this ratio in one of my slides. Okay, can you see this? First rule says, if the job is being done in less than 20 meters height, that the drop zone radius should be approximately 1/3. That is 33% of the working height. That is the first rule. If the height of where the job is being done is 20 meters, is below 20 meters. That's from 20 meters down. So we should be talking about 33% of the height, of the entire height. That will give you the drop zone radius. But if the job is being done above 20 meters, okay, then the radius of the drop zone should be 25% of the total height where the job is being done. Okay, that is what we use to calculate those drop zone radius. Actually, this Safeoclock Australia falling object fact sheet, they developed a program. There is a program that is already developed that is like a calculator that it will give you, it will just calculate the height and the drop zone radius automatically for you. Let's take, for instance, you just input that the height of where the job will be done is 20 meters, or let's say 50 meters. The calculator will automatically tell you the radius of the drop zone that should be established. Okay, this website, if you check from this website, safeaustralia.gov.au, you'll find this falling object fact sheet. So they developed a very comprehensive program that does the calculation. It's like a calculator. It does the calculation automatically. Yes, I will send you the slides later when you request for it. Okay, now that is it from me, and I'm leaving the floor open for others to contribute.
Okay, let me just say one or two things. I don't know if you can give me an opportunity to share my slide also. So I don't have. Let me just have an opportunity to share my slide.
Yeah, I've given you access. Go ahead and share.
Now, you've said a lot. You've said a lot because during my course of, can you see my slide?
Yes, I can see your slide.
Yeah. So during the course of me trying to get some information regarding this topic, just like you said from the beginning, you know, as at the last discussion, we had a discussion about work at height. So eventually some questions were developed at that instance. So that is why we said, okay, let's discuss about the drop zone, you know, and the truth is that you cannot discuss the drop zone without looking at what is the reason we are establishing a drop zone. Okay, so let me 1 second. Oh, sorry, my son is trying to disturb me. Sorry for that, please. Yeah, so when you look at it, you cannot talk about drop zone without looking at the objects that are also dropping. Okay, so the work pari passu, because if you look at the image I have on this slide, it's talking about gravity. I hope you can hear me. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, so, you know, we look at the gravity because the object plus gravity is equals to dangerous force as seen in this image. So there are a lot of individual work. Like you said, there is no specific regulation because when you look at drop zone, it's not like an activity on its own as compared to work at heights, working in a confined space. So it's just a kind of a measure, a preventive measure we can take in a specific activity. Like when they are carrying out lifting activity, we have regulation that cover lifting operation and lifting equipment regulation. We have that, you know, we have work at heights regulations and all that. So this drop zone is just like a subset of a particular activity that already has an existing regulation. So most of the things you find around are just guidelines that are developed by industry, you know, based on experience of what has happened in the past. So we might not really get a regulation that cover this aspect because it's just a control measure thing. Okay, so basically, when you look at it, you measure out sample of 1 kilogram object drop from 9 meter, create about 2,700 kilogram of force. And also, when you look at this drop, I want you to see this drop matrix, okay? This drop effect matrix, okay? It tells you how many kg, you know, and the effect it can cause if eventually lead to an accident, okay? Now, when you have a drop, you look at this green zone, that means when you have less than 1 meter height, okay, by 1 kg, you see up to this level, the effect is not, we are talking about first aid case. But you know, the higher the height and also the higher the kilogram of the object that falls, you get to a level of reportable accidents or incidents, and there's also a lost time injury and there is fatality. So when you look at it, even at 1 kg, when it gets to about 10 meter height, you can establish a lost time injury. And when it goes beyond 10 meter, then with 1 kg, you can have a fatality. With just single 1 kg, you can see from here up to this place. When you have above 10 kg, 10 meter height on 1 kg, there's chances of fatality. So for us to know how dangerous it is, and when it goes above, you know what it means. Now you look at the drop metrics. This is just an example of what happened, just like what I've explained. It's just a typical picture that shows what happens, you know, when all those things drop. So I think I just want to show that picture to give us a picture of what it means. but subsequently I can come in to just discuss one or two other things. But at the moment, I will just rest at this point. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stephen, for that contribution. We had a lot of contributions in the chat. Mr. Bissot, are you there? You want to speak? Or I can go ahead and read your chat. Okay, I guess you are more free to chat. All right, Mr. Bissot said there are some more points that could be added to the information. First is availability of drop zone wording, that to control unauthorized entry into the drop zones. Okay, second one, it says drop zones should be with hard barriers only. Okay, the third one, is said there should be a display of with contact info of a permit to work receiver. All right, these are contributions from Mr. Bissot, and he's absolutely correct. Drop zones should not be a kind of thing that is easily maneuvered. Should be something that is firm, like he said, hard barriers, so that it will be very difficult for people to enter it. Also, he mentioned the drop zone warding, that is somebody that could stand near the activity area to keep people off. In case some people didn't recognize the drop zone, the drop zone warden will be able to signal them and let them understand that there is an activity going on an elevated area where material could drop and could cause injury. He also thought about display of contact and permit to work at the drop zone location. This could also apply in the sense that if somebody approaching does not understand what is going on, it could make a contact to report a deviation or report an issue. Okay, so that's well taken. And all right, so the floor is open now for contribution.
Mr. Johnson, let me just add one or two things. Sorry, I had a little distraction because I have people that is coming to service my AC, so I wasn't informed earlier. So,
all right,
from the discussion. So,
yeah.
Okay. Basically, there's also something we need to discuss about this.
You are not audible.
Activity, or will I say you cannot have a drop zone without a major activity? Yeah, you cannot have a drop zone without an existing activity going on in that site. Okay, possibly it could be that maybe a lifting activity is going on there, or maybe a work at height is going on there, like when those people are working in a high-rise building and so on and so forth. And it is very important that during the course of carrying out this activity or planning for it, I think we should be able to consider this in our risk assessment, to be able to establish a drop zone and also develop what we call drop object prevention plan as well. Because because we have to look at it from the upper side in terms of drop object prevention. Because if we cannot focus on that, we might end up finding out that even the drop zone we are creating might not be as safe as we think. Okay, so they go pari passu. Okay, ensuring that you have this prevention plan, drop object prevention plan, and also that of the work zone, the drop zone of itself. Okay, like I've said, and when we look at all this, we have to consider different factors. You know, like I've said, working at eye, the kind of object they are going to be using, you know, the presence of personnel and other equipment. Sometimes it's not only objects. Some equipment you are using can just drop at a particular level, and you end up, it ends up causing serious injury and all that. So, and another point is that when we try to designate a drop zone, we have to look at a suitable location that minimizes the risk of falling objects. You know, like you pointed out some of those points, and also we have to make a clear marking of the spots and ensure that we have sufficient barricade within the area, and that can prevent easy access into those zones, just like one of the person has contributed, giving a point of having a kind of a watch person that can really make this regulation, that can regulate the entry and exit of personnel within this zone. And also, which is very, very important, like we said, there is no regulation that states exactly what to do, but by best practice and from other regulations that require confined space and other activity, we should be able to know what to apply in a situation like this, depending on the kind of activity that are being carried out within the site. Okay, so one important thing again is that when we carry out a drop zone management, we need to create a kind of training awareness for the workers. It's not just about designing or designing a drop zone, okay? But we need to have this training awareness of the work to the workers, and also we need to communicate what is this drop zone all about. You know, it doesn't work just alone for us as a professional. Okay, when we establish something, we need to give a kind of training awareness to the workers, let them understand what this drop zone is all about. And also we have to get a kind of open communication to make sure that they understand the risks associated with going into this drop zone, what can happen, and also encourage them in terms of PPE, because there are some people that must at some point get into this zone, okay? And if they will do that, what are the required PPE that they are going to use, at least to be able to ensure safety in case of any things that happen. And also, there should be a kind of regular inspection and maintenance. If possible, they are doing a lifting activity. I should know as a rule, there should be an inspection of the crane, there should be maintenance and all that. So all these things are very, very vital. Like I've said, without looking at the top, you are at the bottom, trying to do manage zone and all that. A lot of things will be dropping. So they have to marry each other, as I've said. And also, there should be a kind of emergency preparedness also in case of an emergency, so that one can be able to rescue, and also we can practice a kind of emergency preparedness drill, you know, to make the workers and everybody who are involved in such activity area to be aware of the danger in case of emergency. I think that's what I would like to contribute. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stephen. There is one important point that I want to contribute before someone else talk. You see, in most situations, we establish drop zones or maybe area barricades without putting in place a diverted access. So maybe the activity is going on where is already recognized as access, or where is already recognized as the walkway or a path. And all of a sudden, this activity is going on in that location and a drop zone must be established. So first, while planning this activity, the plan should include diversion of access. if you've not properly diverted the access, if you've not properly provided an alternative walkway or an alternative path, people will eventually enter the drop zone because they've known that area as their walkway or their path. So it comes to play from the beginning of the activity that the activity should be properly planned, in the sense that if you've established a drop zone, then nobody would bypass it because there is an alternative access and because the access has been diverted and proper signages, proper diversional signage is in place. So you are reducing the probability of people entering the drop zone because you did proper planning. So this should be considered as well, not just to establish a drop zone and without providing an alternative access or alternative walkway. Let's take, for example, if the activity is also happening in a public area, maybe along the road, like in Qatar, before you can close any road to do any activity, you must have to obtain a road closure permit. Okay, so this permit will stipulate the diverted access. It will stipulate the time and the duration of the closure. So this should be in place so that people will not be forced to enter the drop zone area. Okay, there is a comment from Mr. Bissau also. He said, one more benefit of drop zone management is it can be easily assessed if any simultaneous operation so that simultaneous operation will not be allowed in the location. Okay, what I understand is trying to say is that if simultaneous operation activities, maybe 2 or 3 activities, we are supposed to go on in the same location. If you've established a drop zone, then it cannot happen because you already have a drop zone established. Then people cannot go into that location to start another activity without verification and without proper coordination. So establishing a drop zone helps you also to manage simultaneous operations, okay? Because the drop zone is already established. So people trying to work in that location will have to coordinate with the supervisor or the engineer or the person in charge and ask questions if it's safe to enter in that location. So if a drop zone was not established, then people can easily start working in that location without knowing that someone is already working at the top, where an object could drop from and cause injury. Okay, thank you for that contribution. All right, the floor is open for others to contribute so that we will not be the only one talking today. Okay, I think we have exhausted our points. Drop zone management is just an additional control measure in managing drop risk of drop objects. So it's not such a vast topic that will take the whole day. So if we've exhausted our points, then we could call it a day, and we'll reconvene again by next week, Thursday by 6 p.m. to discuss other topics that will be raised. All right, that being said, and without further question or comment, we can call it a day. And thank you all for coming, and thank you for your time and for your contribution. If you need a CPD certificate, just message me privately with your full names. We can arrange a CPD certificate. If you need the slides or any of the information that we've shared, you can also message me privately and I will share with you. So our major aim here is to increase our knowledge, learn from each other, and try to encourage each other to research and read about a topic each week. So if you are doing this every week, you are able to read about a particular topic that we said we are going to discuss, or you join the discussion. So you are refreshing your memory on a particular topic each week. So before the end of every month, you've read about 4 different topics in health and safety. So you become better and you implement it in your workplace, and your workplace will become safer. So thank you all for attending, and I'll just drop my WhatsApp number in case I didn't capture your chat. You just send me direct message in WhatsApp for any other thing you need. Thank you very much for coming, and see you next week, Thursday by 6 p.m. I will share with us the topic we'll be discussing by next week, before Thursday, so that we can all look at it together. All right, bye. See you all.
Yeah.